Hello and welcome to the Feedback Show. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Hello, Dad. How you
Hi,
doing?
Steve. Oh, I'm well. Yeah, doing very well. Yeah, looking forward to this today. I've had a quick run through. You always give me a quick run through as to what we've got on. By goodness, we're getting a few in now, aren't we?
Yeah, lots
People are
of
working
pictures.
hard and very ambitious. Some of them too. But
Mm,
there we are.
that's it. That's it. So a little update. We put up a new picture yesterday. I want to mention the rough collie,
Hmm.
which people are loving. By the way, absolutely beautiful picture that was.
Yes.
The rough collie, and there's a picture, not a picture, a quick YouTube clip has gone up as well of the tongue, so
Yes.
people can check that out as well
It,
after they've
it's
watched
difficult
this.
to know, isn't it, Steve, on that because there's so many difficult bits. You think, well, my goodness, should I show this bit? Should I show that bit? I was just watching it back yesterday, the first couple of clips that we've got on the member site. I think, blimey,
There's a lot to
I.
it.
Yes, because it's a while ago I did that, and I remember it thinking, my goodness me, there's a lot to be seen on this. If anybody, well, I'm sure many people will attempt that, but when they do, they're going to learn an awful lot. There's
Mm.
so much in that.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So, lots of submissions, as we said. Some of them not artwork, some of them are just asking for your advice. Maybe we should call this the
Hmm.
feedback and advice show.
Yeah, well, I can give pointers. I mean, sometimes I can only just skip over the surface because there's so much. I could spend a whole show on one of them, and I can't do that. Can't afford to do that. We've got to get through this, but I can give pointers, and hopefully I hit the nails on the head for everybody.
Mm, fantastic. Okay, so let's start off with the first one from Liz. Hi, Stephen. I have watched a couple of your dad's videos, and after receiving the pencils from you, I decided to fly free and have a go. I used a piece of pastel mat board and the Pit Pastel pencils. I was able to draw his picture from memory. His expression is ingrained in my memory. I would be interested in any advice you or your dad may have. This is dad.
Right. Yes. Well, well done, Liz. That's an extremely good thing to do. I wouldn't even attempt that. That is something from memory. The problem you have from memory is although you can remember the colours and you remember the rough shape of the animal, you can't get it accurate. And here you haven't done that simply because you've just done it from memory, drawn it from memory. And so, really, my advice here is to get a picture if you've got the same picture or a picture very much like it, and try it again, but this time square it off. Use a square drawing or some kind of drawing aid. You don't have to use square drawing, and get the proportions right. Because until you do that, it doesn't matter how clever you are at actually producing the colours and the design of the animal, you're not going to get it right. You've got to get that right. I always insist on this square drawing or some kind of drawing aid to get the proportions. I'm only talking about proportions. Once you've got the proportions, then you can fly free, as you say, and go for it.
Mm,
But that's the first bit of advice, and I think everybody would agree with me, because the other thing with this pastel mat board, I don't personally like it. I know a lot of people do use it and they've been successful with it, but I personally don't like the ombre pastel paper. Is more forgiving. If you make an error, you can correct it easier, in my opinion. So that's the other thing. So there's a couple of things really there but I still think you've had a great attempt at it
mm.
from memory. As I said, I couldn't have done that.
No, I couldn't either. Just picture something and then draw it
Mm.
out. Yeah, it's impressive.
Well, it's not so much I couldn't, I wouldn't. I think if I'm being honest, I wouldn't do it because I don't think I could ever do anything justice from memory.
Mm. It's interesting with the square drawing how until you lay over a grid over a picture and then over your drawing, you don't quite realise the inaccuracies of proportions until you lay the grids over. I
That's
remember you
right.
showing to this to me a long time ago.
Mm.
Um, literally comparing the two and going, "Oh, you can see that's not in that square and it's in that square," and you go, "Wow, okay." It's even if to check your proportions,
That's
if you
right.
think you've done it
Mm.
spot on, it's worth laying a grid over to check.
Mm. You're absolutely right there. And the other thing is, without any references, you've got no way of knowing whether you're right or wrong. You just look at it and think, it doesn't look right to me. But you've got no way of finding that out unless you do as you said that way. So you're quite right, Steve.
Nice work, Liz. Anyway, thanks for sending it. This lovely picture comes from Roz. Hi, Stephen and Colin. I have not started this picture yet, as I'm a bit confused at how to tackle the various colours in the picture, particularly which base colours and brown tones to use for the paler areas. Also, do I work on the paler areas first, then work the darker, cooler tones in afterwards? Should we start with that?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Start with the lighter tones and then work your darker tones in. The main thing I can tell you here is the grey is going to be really important here. I think I probably would go for the bluey hues, which are 230 and 233. Sometimes it's very difficult because you think, well, I don't know, has it got earthy tones in it? But that's got a kind of mauvish look to it, and you want to stick to that because it looks great on the screen, and it will come out well. So the bluey greys I would use. Now the lighter, you're obviously going to be using white, a little bit of white, and perhaps a little bit of ivory on the very lightest parts of that fur, light fur. And then you want to use the grey, and I would use the 230 for the lighter fur and the 233, for instance, for the darker fur. Then you can put your browns on top of that. That mutes the browns then. The browns become like the colour of that dog. If you look at that dog and squint your eye, all you can see is grey. You can't really see the brown, you see the grey. And that's what you need to think about as undertones. So the grey is the important one. Even in the eyes, I'd put grey in, just a little bit of light grey, and then I'd put the brown in. Okay. It makes the brown look less fierce, for want of a better word. But good luck with those curls. They are, but it's fabulous. That's one of those challenges you'll find. I wouldn't mind betting we get this back again very soon, saying, Colin, have I got the fur right? Because that is going to be quite hard to do. But have a go at it. If you can pull it off, those sort of subjects come up brilliantly. So it's worth having a go. But those. Is that, if I covered it all, Steve?
I was just going to say, she's added any suggestions for a background colour?
Oh, well, you can't really do a background until you've done the animal. I've got to tell you that. Whenever you see me do a picture, I never do the background. I never even talk about the background, except I'm going to do one, because I wait until I've finished the picture, then it comes to me. So that's almost impossible for me to tell you. All I would tell you is don't make it too dark, because you'll lose the dog. You don't want to make it too light either, because again, that would be make the dog stand out too much. So you've got a mid-tone colour, I would think. And it can include some of the colours in the eye. I would certainly put a grey, perhaps a 230 background on to start with all over, and then add your colours into that, because that would go very nicely with the colour of the animal. But I can't really give backgrounds, not until you've done it.
Good point. Okay, thanks, Roz. Best of luck. Next one from Jill. Hi, Colin and Stephen. I am partway through this commission for someone, and I just can't seem to get the colouring right. In the original, he has more of a rich, rusty brown. Is it possible for me to get this look from where I am now by adding another tone, or do you think it could still pass for the animal in a different light? So,
I think you've done very well, and I would stick. We talked about backgrounds earlier. That background on that is really nice. Well done on that. The colour of the animal, it's got touches of 283 in. You may well have used 283. I can see, if you look at the left eye, between the left eye and the ear, you've got a browny look. You see that browny look?
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the animal, it's the same, more or less the same colour. So you've achieved it there. Why haven't you achieved it everywhere else? Because that's the colour you could actually put on, which would make it richer. So it's worth trying that.
Okay. All right, excellent.
But that
So,
283 is the answer to that, possibly. Um, Another thing you can do, we were talking earlier on the last one, I think it was, when we had the furry dog with the lots of curls. I said you've got to put grey on. Now, if you were to put the grey on in the same way that Jill's done, then you would get more or less that same. Can you switch up a minute, Stephen?
yeah, sure.
Go back to the other one. See what I mean? See the colour? The colours I was talking about.
Especially down
Anyway,
here.
okay, stay with our friend here now. So that's what you've done. But the danger is if you put too much grey on, then it restricts the colour of the richness of the brown. I personally don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a lovely portrait, and if I'd received that from you, I would be thrilled with it. So don't be too unhappy with it. I think it's really nice. But that's the way you do it, and it's worth experimenting with.
Excellent. Nice one, Jill. Okay, this picture from Margaret, we mentioned it on our podcast last week, and we said we were going to put it on the feedback show so people could see. I'll read Margaret's email. Hello, I've successfully completed 3 pictures with no issues and pleased with the results. However, I'm 2/3 of the way through this one of the Spitfire and have found that the pigment is seeming to lift off the paper. This is with the sky and the sea, and to a lesser extent the Spitfire itself. I can't figure out why this has happened. The conditions are the same as for the others, and I've used the same methods and follow how you do it closely. So, anyway.
I think what we were talking about last week, it was pressure. That almost certainly a problem there. If we could just pick one little spot out, the blue in the sky. You see the blue in the sky? See, my picture has got a really rich blue, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you were to put the blue, I can't remember what it was now, it might have been 140, it might have been 143, anyway, whichever colour it was, if you put that again on your picture of the Spitfire and press just a little bit harder, you'd find you had the same colour as mine. Now, if you repeated that same process right through the whole of the picture that you've done so far, all of the colours would become richer. The green, for instance, is weak at the moment, which suggests to me you've applied it weakly.
So
you got me?
Press harder on the paper.
Yeah, press harder. Be a little bit more forthright. Now, you've said you've done 3 pictures, and I'm not sure which they have been, but when you come, if those 3 pictures haven't needed the pressure, then you probably got away with it. The other thing I would say is look at the blue horizon line. Look at my blue on that. See how rich that is? You can imagine, can't you? Gosh, if I had my pencil now, I'd really go to town on that.
The thing with the email here, that it seems like the pastel's lifting off the paper. Do you think she's crushed it though?
I don't think she's pressed hard enough to crush it, Steve. No,
right,
I don't think that's the case. There's got to be a reason. Now, whenever you look at something like this, it's no good really asking me why is it, because I'm not there seeing you do it or looking at you doing it. And we know that looking at my picture, if you use the ombre paper as I have, and you use the Faber-Castell pastel pencils as I have, it's got to look the same as mine if you use the same pressures that I use. It's got to, but there isn't any answer to it. I did wonder initially whether you'd use the other side of the paper, the wrong side of the paper, because that's got a very slight tooth in it. And that can, because it hasn't got the reception area of the ombre, can give you that kind of effect. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to get to grips with this. I think you said, can I fix it by adding more pastel? Or can I remedy this, or should I start again with a new picture? Well, look, if I said to you, yeah, start again with a new picture, but why don't you, if you're going to start again with another picture, play with that one first. Do the things I've told you to do. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I've done this before in the past to people in my classes. And I said, well, look, you've sort of given up on it now, so why not? What the hell? Do as I told you. They do it. And it works, and they think, oh, I don't need to start another picture. Look what I've done. Look what I've achieved.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's a good point.
So go for it. You've just got to go for this. There's a reason why you've done it. I can't honestly tell you because I can't see the picture, but I suspect you're not strong enough.
Interesting. Okay, good. Well, I hope that helps, Margaret, and I hope that helps everyone else that's watching to think about pressure when applying pictures. Okay, another one from Jill. Hi, Stephen and Colin. Here's another one I've done and have got questions on. I know the collars are different, but the customer wanted a new collar on. I'm wondering whether the background colour is wrong. Should it be a grey? So, what do you think about the background colour there?
No, is the answer to that. No, it shouldn't be. The colour you've got is pretty good. In fact, I'd leave it like that. I'd probably, if it was me, put a bit of pink in that, if you haven't already done so, because you've got a nice pink collar there that would look nice. Just a little bit of pink in it. No, I would think that was pretty good. The animal stands nicely away from it. It's a good mid-tone. I often look at pictures like this and I can see a halo around them. And I can just about see that going round there. So in a situation like this, use some of the colour. Let's pick a colour. On the right-hand corner, right up in the top right-hand corner of Jill's picture, you'll see, Steve, you've got your little cursor. You'll see a little, there we are, that's it, brown. Now, if you bring that down, gradually bring it down to touch the animal. That's it. Like that. Now, if you were to bring some of that colour down and touch the animal, you'd lose that white fuzz going around it. See what I mean?
Yeah.
If you did that a couple of times around the animal, you wouldn't get a halo. So it's just a point to bear in mind. And you were also talking about, do you need make my colours stronger?
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes. You see the white of the animal, the white on the body of the animal, and your white is grey. Could really be white. Now, you've just overdone the grey. I mean, you put the white on, presumably. You put the white on there initially. So where's it gone? And it can only be that you've used the grey on top of it and you haven't lightened it up. So yes, quite right. It could be a little bit brighter. But still getting there. I think it's still a lovely picture. Just needs a bit more brightness. There is one thing before you go on, Steve. Now, Jill hasn't mentioned it, but I'd like to mention it to you. If we could if we go to the photograph for the moment, and on the left-hand side where the collar goes round the neck, that's it, up there, just about there. Now, focus on that, folks, and then focus on Jill's. See what Jill's does? It doesn't go up high enough. Look at the angle. If you look, you see what I mean?
Yeah, I've just noticed that. God, it's just cuts in a bit more, doesn't it? A bit higher.
That's right, it narrows. This is something that you've got to look out for. I wouldn't necessarily worry about it in this case, but these are the things you've got to remember. What you've got to do, Steve, is imagine when you're putting that collar on, you see the collar behind the animal. In other words, if you were to do an X-ray, can you get your little pointer for the moment?
Yeah.
And go to that's it. Now, if you were to go up to probably the middle of his mouth now, her mouth, the dog's mouth, whatever. Now, that's roughly up higher than that, a little bit higher than that. That's roughly where the collar disappears around his neck. So you've got to think like that. You've got to think the collar goes around. Now, if you were to do the same on Jill's, it would be much, much lower than that.
Right.
If you were to follow that round, if you had an X-ray of it. So these are only small things, and I don't mean to be picky, but I know that Jill would be appreciative of this, and other people would, because you don't see it. You wouldn't have seen it, Steve, would you?
No, we wouldn't have even considered it. No.
No, but these are small things that make such a difference to the general overall effect of a picture.
It's another depth to the drawing, isn't it? It's just another layer of thinking.
Absolutely. But well done here, I've got to tell you, and not putting that medallion thing that's dangling down. That would have looked awful on the picture. So you haven't done it, which is great. So well done.
Nice.
It's something people would be tempted with that, you see, but it would have looked awful.
Nice work, Jill. Okay, next one from Greg. Hi, Steve and Colin. This was a fun piece and excellent for working on the blending skills. The back half of the black portion was a challenge, and I hope the separation of feathers is distinct. The white chest took a lot of time, and I would appreciate Colin's comments on the shading and form. And finally, any ideas on how to improve the grassy area?
Yeah, well, let's start with the grassy area. Practice, Greg. It's simple as that. You've just got to do more. But you're getting there. I got to say, you're getting there, and it's pretty good. So keep at it. That'll work out. I'd be fussy, but other people wouldn't. They'd look at that and say, that's beautiful. Well done. And it is well done too. Now, as far as the feathers in the back, one of the things interesting you said, the separation of the feathers is distinct. I think they're too distinct, to be honest. I would have. You see, if you look at the back of the bird, it's got a Y there. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Now that is throwing you out there, because the bird actually doesn't happen on the bird. His feathers don't quite do that, not the same way you've done it. So you're throwing that out. What I would do is get my blender and blend that out a bit. So that's so where do you draw a line sometimes? Literally, where do you draw a line? Yeah. Sometimes you can draw a line and it doesn't need it. So you've got to imply feathers rather than actually draw them if you can. Not easy. But we've got loads of feathers, folks, coming up. Loads of them. Haven't we, Steve?
Oh, yes. Hours of feathers.
Yeah. So you're going to get used to this, folks, in the end. But they are hard. Feathers are difficult to do. The white on the body, no, that could have been a bit stronger. And again, you've got to be brave with something like this. Otherwise, you don't get the roundness, you don't get the plumpness of anything if you don't make it just that little bit plumper. It's all shading. Yeah. Absolutely shading, yeah. A little bit of light grey. Sorry, not a little bit of light grey. A little bit of the grey, I think it was 233 I used on that. And just a smidgen of the 181 with just a little bit of that pinky. As well. I can't remember the colours now, but anyway, I would have used a pinky colour there as well, and just blend those in. People are worried about putting 181, but you've got to remember 181, although it's a Payne's grey, and that's the bulk of the feathers, the black feathers were 181. So you'd think, I'm going to put this on white, it's going to be miles too heavy. But if you think about it, you've put a lot of white on there, you've probably put grey on as well, so you've got a lot of cushion. And when the 181 goes on, as long as you're not too severe with it, then it would go on and it would turn out like mine did.
Yeah, it's going to mute it enough.
Don't be frightened of it.
Yeah. Excellent. Nice work, Greg. Next one is from Paul. Hello, this is my latest picture, and I found it more difficult than I expected it to be. I found it quite tricky doing the white feathers, also more feathers, isn't it? And also the branch. I think the branch suffered because I erased it more than the paper could take. So there's one mistake that I won't be repeating. I also have to learn to be more gentle and not to press too hard when I start panicking. I also found the background so frustrated that I gave up and improvised myself. Everyone loves the picture, but I'm not too sure myself. So this picture has got to be done again in the very near future.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
I was just going to finish Paul's email off saying I was going to send this one, but I thought if I don't, I won't get any advice. So here it is.
That's right. Well, I'm glad you did. And if I were you, I wouldn't do it too soon either. I'd leave it for a few, maybe 6 months or a year before you do it again. The reason I say that is because you've still got the memory of this, and that will come back to haunt you. But if you've got a few more pictures under your belt, then have another go at it. It'll work. Just to give you an idea of these things happen to me as well. I've just done a little picture, which I showed Steve before we started here. Now that, Steve, you don't know about it, but I started that twice.
Really?
Before. Yep. I was desperate to do it because it's such a lovely, pretty little picture. I thought, I've got to do it. And I started it once and I thought, no, it's just not working. Scrapped it. Didn't get very far, mind you. It only started. Then I started again. I did it again. And again, I thought, no, it's not going to work, this one. Scrapped it again. But I kept the picture, kept the photograph. And I suppose this must be, it's got to be into 6 months or 9 months between each one of these. I got it out again. I thought, do you know what now? I think I'll have another go at that. Anyway, I did, and it's come off brilliantly. So, what do you learn from that? All my experience, and I couldn't have done that a couple of years ago. I didn't do it, or I chose not to. I wasn't ready for it. But now I've just finished it, and it's brilliant. I'm thrilled to bits with it. So this is the kind of thing you've got to remember. It's psychology plays a big part in this. And in this situation, I would say to you, do it again, definitely do it again, but leave it until you've got over this one. But you do know what's wrong with this. You've already found that out. You can't do the background, so you've got a bit more background experience, especially with animals like this. It's quite hard, as we use some soft pastel, I think, in this one as well, Steve. But the branch is another thing. Now, I say that because there's a few branches coming up as well in the
yeah, there is, yeah,
in the future, aren't there? So you've got plenty of chance of practicing some of those before you have another go at this one. This is quite hard. It's a dark one, and you've got the light. You're losing the light on the top of it. But I'm sure everybody out there will sympathize with you. Anything bark, branches are hard, really hard to do.
I think
Anyway,
I think it looks very good. I mean, if I did that, I would be so thrilled.
well, look, everybody's seen it. Paul said everybody's seen it and loves it. Well, they do, because they're not going to be critical like we are they? They're not going to look at the halos around the top of the bird and around the branch. They're not going to look at that. They don't see that. They look at the bird. But you see it because I point it out to you. But this is where the learning curve comes in. I mean, if you'd have looked back on this a few years ago and said, I'm going to do a goldfinch like this, you wouldn't have believed it. But it's now that you've done it, you think, oh, it doesn't look as good as Colin. You're constantly comparing. I want you to do that. That's part of the learning curve, isn't it? And the other thing is we're looking at the feathers in the back here. Now, this is slightly different to the other bird that we've just seen. Here, you've got to be a little bit more forceful with certainly your 181 and put a little bit more depth in there, because there's not enough depth, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, a little bit more contrast.
Yeah, where the legs are.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Well done, Paul. Yeah, really congratulations. And if you do attempt it again in the future, then let us know.
Yeah, and if you've got a picture of that anyway, you must have taken a picture of that. Keep that picture, and then you can put it side by side, like you've done with mine here. See where you've improved. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, good idea.
Okay, last couple here, some more pictures. This one from John. I've attached a photo of Herbert, my 10-year-old basset hound, who is the subject of my next pastel pencil painting. I wondered if you could help me with the composition, please. I think it's a great picture, which I could probably draw as is, with the whole body, but I'm wondering if this would also work if I was to just draw his head and neck using a fogging technique to blend the neck into the background.
Right. Well, I'm not totally convinced this is an accurate picture. Sometimes cameras can lie. I think it's narrowed him down a little bit too much. That's what it looked like to me. So I'd have to compare it to other basset hounds. Anyway, but the answer to your question is, in this particular instance, I probably wouldn't do that. I'd do the animal.
The whole animal?
Yeah, because the problem you've got is, where do you cut the neck off? I suppose if you were really going to be fussy, you could cut the neck off. You got your little pointer there, Steve. You put it up a bit. No, go down to the end of that little circle. That's it. Something like that you could do. I mean, you'd have to knock out the legs, and you'd have to just, forget the legs and make that where the fogginess comes in. But the problem you have with when you've got ears as long as that, they kind of demand quite a lot of space below them.
Yeah.
And you haven't got a lot of space below those ears, so they're tending to rest on the bottom of the picture. So this is why I say, if it was me, I probably would do the whole thing if you were insistent on doing that picture. That's my advice anyway. And of course, that then brings up what do we do about the background? Don't put the fence in. You put the grass in and then just recede it as though it's in a big field with maybe distant trees in the background, and fog them off. It's very hard, but I'd look closely at the photograph to see whether, in fact, that is a bit narrow.
It looks
It may
like
be
the
that.
proportions are off, doesn't it? It looks
Yeah,
like we've had
yeah.
that before with pictures. It
Yes,
just
that's right. The nose is a bit big compared with the body. I mean, it's the way the camera has interpreted.
yeah.
And I don't think it's your dog. You can only tell that by looking at other photographs.
Okay, well, best of luck with that, John. Last one from Eric, another photograph. Dear Colin, could I ask your advice, as I have not yet got the full range of pencils, and before I place my next order from you, waiting for my pension to come in, I would like to capture my dog of 17 years who has not been too well lately. Got lots of photos, but would like to try her in pastels. Photo attached. Could you advise what colours I would need?
Yep. Well, the colours I would use would be 186, 187, possibly 186. And that would go on top of the ivory. I would say a little bit of white maybe. I'd use ivory where you've got the darker colour, that ochre colour. I would use ivory under that. I wouldn't use white under that. You never get it dark enough. And then I'd put it in and then gradually introduce those colours. But you may need some stronger colours, though. I've got to tell you, something like 283 may well have to be used on this. And sometimes you have to compromise a little bit with colour. It's a very pretty colour, I've got to say. But you could even find a colour, it could even have grey in that, and with a little bit of 189, which is a pinky colour. Now that on its own wouldn't work, but once you put the ochre into it as well, that could then actually turn into that sort of ochre peachy-ish colour. So it could work very well for the. I'd experiment on spare paper though. Take the colours I've given you and then try them out on spare paper. One of the clues we've got here is the nose. If you look at the nose, you see that pinky look to the nose we've got. It's like a light version of some of the colours in the fur. So you could look at that and think, I can see where it's coming from, sort of a greyish. If you're going down the grey route as well, I'd go down the 270, the warm greys, rather than the cool greys here. 270, 273. I wouldn't go into the darker ones. And then if you're on the very dark part of the nose, then you're probably going to end up with 175 rather than the 181. But very, very careful to do that. But you'd need 189 is the colour that springs to mind, because it blends very, very well with 186 and 187, which are the two colours I've suggested. Okay. So those are just an idea. The other thing is I'm not sure. It's a lovely picture, beautiful picture, but one of the problems we have, you're looking down on the animal. Now, that doesn't affect the face particularly. All it does, it affects what's going on underneath it. You see what I mean? So unless you did lose the collar, whatever that collar was there, it's obviously a collar that's beneath his chin.
Yeah. Lose
that. Don't bring that in. Then you could sort of almost fog that out if you wanted to do that.
It's a tough angle, isn't it, to capture?
It's pretty hard. It is. Yes, it's the angle again. When you look down, I mean, you've got some good lights in the eye, and it's a lovely picture. No doubt about that. But it is a little bit bright. There is one thing. Can I make a suggestion to you? Steve, can you do our usual magic on here? Can you bring the side in? Don't matter which side. I'll tell you when. Keep going until I tell you when to stop. Keep going. Stop. Maybe a little less than that. That's it. Now bring the other one in. Carry on. Okay, that's fine. Now, what we've got now, if you think about it, we haven't got a lot to play with. The two bottom corners you could fill up with fur. See what I mean? The top you'd have to put a background on that, because you could say, well, Colin, can't we bring it down a bit? No, you can't, because it would square the picture off too much. In fact, what I would have done is I would add another centimetre to the bottom of the picture, because you don't want a square picture. But that's one way of doing it. That's one way of getting over, because if you look at it now, it's hard to tell whether you're looking down on the animal.
Yes, less obvious, isn't it?
And what you will say to me, yeah, but I wanted to put his ears in. Well, that's fair enough. You do what you think. I'm just giving you an idea of how you could get a composition out of something like that, or save the day, and that would work. But lose the collar under the chin. Forget that. Don't try putting that in, because I can't make head nor tail of it anyway. You know what it is because you know the animal, but I don't.
Yeah.
And neither would anybody else looking at it. So things like that are insisting, you lose them.
Excellent.
I hope that helps. It's a lovely picture.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. So fantastic. Nice work, everyone. I hope all the advice we've offered you found useful. If you have, hit the thumbs up button. If you're on YouTube or if you're on Facebook, hit the like button. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with another feedback show, as always. So keep your pictures coming in and your photos coming in. If you need some advice on those, we'll try and help any way we can. And of course, all of this service is available to members of our website. So just go to colinbradleyart.com, and if you want to learn with us and get feedback from us, then just join any of our membership plans there, and we can feature your artwork. Excellent. All right. Well, the Rough Collie is up, so I hope you all enjoyed that, and we'll chat to you all next week with lots of answers to your questions on a podcast. Again, you can listen at colinbradleyart.com. Thanks, Dad. That was good.
It's a pleasure. A good one this week. Enjoyed it.
And we'll speak to you soon. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Bye for now.